Welcome, everyone. My name is Charles Rayburn. I am a customer success advocate here and a senior customer success manager out of customer success. We've created these office hours to help you as customers based upon topics that you've raised during our monthly check-ins, quarterly check-ins, emails that matter to you most. So today's topic is all about ITBM Agile and a Paris functionality overview. We have a rock star subject matter expert, Colin O'Brien, who's going to be presenting today. As always, these formats are very straightforward. The first 15-20 minutes is talking about grounding us in the functionality, providing a good overview, etc. And then the remaining 40 minutes is all for you as customers to ask questions of the senior subject matter expert, and also to talk about any use cases, etc., that you may have. So as a part of that, if you're finding that you didn't get a chance to answer all of the questions during this call, feel free to reach out to me, Charles. I'll be on the email thread when I send out the recording to this call. And for those of you who were unable to attend the call and you have some key questions, email me as well, because you will receive the my email on that sending of the recording. So, and then also too, if there are other topics you'd love to have us help sponsor, feel free to reach out to your assigned customer success advocate and let them know during the sessions that you have, hey, it would be great if we could have this type of office hour or another type of office hour. Any office hours, though, that already exist, like performance analytics, virtual agent academy, those type of things, will always refer you to those office hours. That way you can get the best advice, experience, et cetera, from those office hours that are out there. So without further ado, Colin, you now have the floor.
All right, perfect. And can you hear me? Because while after you hit the record button, my Zoom crashed. So hopefully I'm back.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, you're back.
Perfect. Literally, I heard, and now I'm going to press the record button, and then it went silent. And I then noticed that that everything went away. Okay, so let me get back to Zoom so I can share.
Oh, no. There's still some more folks coming in, so. Oh, great. Now we could see Paris update slides.
Okay. Yeah, so for today, I'm gonna jump back and forth between what was released in Paris for our Agile capabilities, and I'll do some of them as demos. Some of it really it's kind of hard to demo, and it's easier to speak through in slides. So I'll switch back and forth as appropriate. And I guess I'll go into. Or maybe I won't go into presenter mode. Can you still see? Because my, it's like PowerPoint is trying to go into presenter.
You still see
We see the PowerPoint itself, not the presentation.
Yeah.
Not the presentation, the PPT.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, it's trying to switch. You can see that my bar has gone away. This I may hopefully won't have to drop. We'll see if my computer decides to cooperate today. Okay, so let me start talking a little bit about our integrations that we've been working through. So in February, we released through the store integrations between Azure DevOps and ServiceNow. We also have been releasing integrations between ServiceNow and Jira. And this is meant to synchronize story information between ServiceNow and either Jira or ADO. And this was actually expanded upon again through the store. So you would find this capability on the store. This allows teams, especially when they're doing planning across teams where the teams themselves are in Azure DevOps, but let's say you're doing either SAFe or you're doing like Scrum of Scrums or some other type of higher level planning where you need to see across teams, then you would be able to accomplish that work from ServiceNow, accomplish the planning of sprints across teams, but allow the teams to work in whatever tool they are using for their day-to-day work. Typically, again, Jira and ADO are the two most common common capabilities. So let me show you a little bit on that. So within the integration, if you turn it on, you'll have the ability to set up instances. So I'm only going to go through this with Azure DevOps. It's similar with Jira. So you'll set up instances, which you will need to have a ServiceNow admin help with this, as we require it's called a connection and credential alias that basically just tells us what's the username and typically a personal access token that is used to connect us with Azure DevOps. Once that happens, you'll have a connect button instead of a disconnect button like I have right now that allows you, it basically tests to make sure that everything's working, that we can actually synchronize things between Azure DevOps and ServiceNow. And then you'll have a button that says Discover Projects. And this will look for all of the projects within ADO. If you're not familiar with ADO, it separates everything into projects, and that's where we will connect and synchronize. And then you'll have the projects themselves listed, and you would configure for each project whether you want it to be turned on. So by default, it's not turned on. Once you decide to use it, you can say whether or not you want to bring in stories, whether you want stories to synchronize back out, and whether or not you want us to keep the sprints themselves in sync so that if they exist in Azure DevOps, we'll copy them to ServiceNow. And if you create them in ServiceNow, we will copy them back over into Azure DevOps. And then the one other thing, there's more to it than this, but the other thing I want to point out is that we will map stories or epics. So this is the external table, an epic from Azure DevOps. And then what do we map it to internally to ServiceNow? And this could either be an epic, or if you're doing safe, you may actually have epic feature and story. And this may actually connect to safe epic, safe feature, and safe story instead of RM epic and RM story. This is our default setup. But again, if you're using safe, you will just change these to being the safe tables instead. And then you can also go through and map what fields that you want. So if I were to go into Epic, while we have some out-of-box fields that we map, if my instance will respond, there we go. We set up some out of the box fields that we map. If you want to map additional fields, let's say you've created some custom field in Azure DevOps, then you would be able to specify it with the field mapping here so that we, again, can synchronize the right fields between ServiceNow and Azure DevOps. Okay, next, we released Scrum Programs as a capability back in Orlando. We have enhanced the Scrum Programs capability by allowing you to see things like the capacity of the sprint itself, and also the dependency lines will show colored status. So instead of it just being green across the board, you would be able to see the red if things are out of sequence, yellow if they are basically being co-worked on, they're supposed to end at the same time, and green if everything looks good. We also have added within the Scrum program itself, you'll see updating the sprint. You can actually click on this in order to do it. You can update teams by clicking into things, and you also can create sprints from the board itself. So if I were to switch over, this will be very quickly. So I want to make sure we have time for questions. This is where Scrum Programs, which is a part of ITBM Professional, you would be able to click here. You'll see I can click if I need to modify a team. I have a link here now if I need to add sprints. And then if I need to update a sprint itself, this is now a link where clicking into it will allow me to edit the sprint. In our first release of this, we gave the visibility, and you could definitely move things around. So replanning things by moving things between teams. but we didn't allow you to drill into the sprints, adding sprints, or creating or modifying the team itself. So that is new within Paris. And then next, we made some enhancements for anyone doing SAFe to basically give the same capabilities, including being able to modify. So I'm not going to go into this one, but modifying the story or the sprints. The dependencies are now colored, and you have the capacity. We also added one other capability that is more specific to SAFe, which is being able to see the unplanned work for a team. So if a team has stories, but it's not planned into a sprint yet, you would be able to see that as effectively a backlog for the team itself. So that was also added within Paris. So again, zooming in to see a little bit extra work, we've added unscheduled work. You can click on teams, you can click on the sprints and make changes. And then the dependencies themselves will show red if they're out of sequence, yellow if they're being worked on in the same team, and then red if it's out. So green for good, red for bad, yellow for caution. So in the SAFe board, and a team, let's switch to a release train. So now you can see the backlog, which I don't have any. See if I moved it, then this would have my backlog. And then being able to modify the sprints themselves and being able to see the capacity burn up, just like if we were on the team level. And then finally, we've also made additions to our dashboards. This is something where generating good demo data is actually quite hard. So you'll be able to see and pull in additional dashboards for the teams themselves that are based on effectively the best practices for Agile teams. So this particular one is a cumulative flow diagram that teams will be able to leverage to see how their work is progressing on things that are ready based on completed, which should be continuing up. And if these are starting to get out of balance, that can help a team to understand whether they need to adjust. And we've got some additional screenshots within here. Most of this actually is, we took screenshots from real data that we then scrubbed in order to show better examples. But for the Scrum and SAFe dashboards for this next release, you can also see team capacity across multiple teams and how each sprint is doing. And then you'll also see the completed variance. So especially within Agile teams, if they are either consistently taking on more work after a sprint has started, or if they are consistently dropping work when something is completed, that variance you'll want to keep to a minimum. So we've got a new report here that will actually show you the actual for the capacity and committed stories that have been added to the teams. We've also added for these reports some scatter plots for lead time. Lead time is the amount of time from when a story is created until it is being worked on. And then you saw cumulative flow earlier. We also have new burn up charts, and also something that has been asked for quite some time, being able to get a burn down of your stories, not just by story points, which we've had for quite some time, but also being able to see a burn down of a sprint by task hours. So for any teams that are tasking out their stories and adding estimated hours for those teams, you would be able to switch from the story point burn down to the burn down by task hours. And then finally, and back on the SAFe side, we have a new program roadmap. So I'm going to switch back over to show this. So within the release train itself, oh, where did my? Or I will actually have to find out why it isn't here, so I might actually have to switch back over. So there was, let me just see, maybe it was back on the, nope. So I'm gonna have to find out why my instance doesn't have this, because I demoed it the other day. As a part of SAFE, a program manager has the ability to go through and define what features they're going to be across program increments. And this is a screenshot from SAFE, from the Scaled Agile website that goes over how it is supposed to work. But effectively, you would want to see in a board-like experience, this is using our visual task boards, each program increment that's been defined, and then what features have been planned into each program increment. So you would create effectively a roadmap of the features within your Agile release train over the next several PIs that have been defined. I think I've got a screenshot here, so I'm going to have to, that's why I was looking in the wrong place. I knew I showed it a minute ago. So within the roadmap itself, you'll see no program increment, and then any program increments that are defined going out into the future, so that you can see your features by PI over time. So this is doing road mapping capabilities as defined by Scaled Agile, the Scaled Agile framework. All right, so with that, we had until, for the first 20 minutes where I was going over the Paris updates. And after that, if I recall correctly from the agenda, we were keeping the next 40 for questions from the customers that have joined. So I didn't ask for questions during this section because I knew we had 40 minutes with which I can drill down further into an area if desired. So with that, I will turn it back over to open it up to customers to ask questions.
All right, thanks a lot there, Colin. All right, everyone, now is the chance to ask any quick questions related to Agile and Paris functionality. If you have a question right now, you can go ahead and just take yourself off of mute and ask it. And as one question comes in, any additional questions, feel free to put them into the chat window and I'll ask them on your behalf, or I'll just call upon you to go ahead and ask your question. So any questions for Colin right now about Agile and any particular use cases that might be applicable to this?
As you make changes here, what is the update time for it to be reflected? Let's say in Jira. How long does it take for it to update back into Jira? Is it immediate or is it time sync?
No, so while network traffic in your Jira instance could impact it, it is considered a real-time, or I should say near real-time update.
Okay.
And that happens both ways. We actually set up a webhook. So anytime Jira makes an update, a webhook is called, and that webhook is a ServiceNow endpoint. So we will get updates and process them immediately. So pretty close to real time.
Okay.
So
Next
I have a question.
user.
How
customer.
would you balance the work that is what I would call keeping the lights on? So how can we get all the incidents and the requests integrated with these dashboards?
Yeah, so there is, and I'm let me check to see if it is turned on this one. No, so I'm going to switch out of SAFE and into Agile, and also change who I'm logging in as to good old Eileen or Aileen. So there was a capability released, I want to say it started in London, and we've been making enhancements to it over time that we call our unified backlog. And when the unified backlog is turned on, it introduces a new concept called the Triage Board. So the Triage Board allows you to pull in other types of, well, anything that extends the task table can be pulled in to the Triage Board to be worked on. So you'll see I have software incidents. I have problems with my name on it because I'm bad at naming things. I'm not that creative. So I have Collins problems. And when you set that up, it effectively puts other things on your backlog. So a PRB, an incident, a story will be all together, a defect. If it could be a custom table, so long as it extends task, it is eligible to be brought onto the backlog. Now, we do a little bit of behind the scenes magic to make that work. And if you're wanting to fully see on any kind of report, well, first of all, they will show up on the report without you doing anything. But if you want to create a new report that breaks it down so that it's not just all work, but you want to see, for instance, the cumulative flow of problems and incidents compared to stories, then you'll need to be aware of the magic that goes on behind the scenes in order to do that. We, first of all, don't modify your problem record. We have added an additional field that is not all that needed in order to accomplish this on the problem side, but is necessary on the story side, because the story record, we actually create a story record. So while I see PRB here on the backlog, we actually create a story record, and we've introduced a field called original task that this story points to so that it knows where this came from. But the story record is what the team will actually interact with. This is what they will either assign to a specific team to work on. So the assignment group from a development perspective can be, and usually is, different from the assignment group of the problem itself. But if you wanted to see any kind of reporting, then you could dot walk from the story record itself to the original task and look at the type, either by using like the sysclass name or something like that, in order to create a kind of breakdown between what kind of item is on the backlog. We don't currently do that with any of our reports. It's something we are actually evaluating if we do ship with things that ship with reports that break it down. But this original task you can dot walk off of in order to get more details about the backing record that this story came from.
Excellent, thanks. And is that also available in the safe side of the house too?
It is. So there is an explicit plugin that you've got to turn on. It's not on by default, but under the applications, this again would be a sysadmin that would have to turn it on. But if you search for unified backlog, there's the unified backlog for Agile, and then there's a separate one for safe. It works the exact same way. Just one works off the safe records, and the other one works off the Agile 2.0 records. So once my instance loads, I could type in unified.
So the project number is automatically uploaded, or it's something like we have to put it manually?
No, so it is automatically created. I'll actually walk through how it works, but this is the two different ones. So you have Scaled Agile Framework Unified Backlog. It says installed. I must not have set it up. And then the other one is Agile Development Unified Backlog. They do the same thing. It's just one is for Agile 2.0. The other is for SAFe. And then I'll show, I didn't walk through how exactly it worked. Let me do that. And then that should give clarity as to how the magic actually works. So when you have a triage, what we have, if you want a new one, like let's say I want to bring in, I don't know, change requests, you click on new triage definition and you will give it an, or actually defects, that'll work better. So all defects. So I'm looking at the defect table. You'll see it could be on any table. Again, extends task, that's the only requirement. And then you have filter conditions. So if I only wanted ones where the defect was for some particular configuration item, like some sort of business application. So HR onboarding. So I only want defects that are assigned to HR onboarding. I'm not going to do this because I don't think I have any. I'm honestly not sure if I have any defects, but that's how you would create a new triage definition. Once the definition is set up, then it will show up as an option in the triage board. I had 7. So if I click on all defects, it loads me into a screen where I select them. So we do not automatically bring items in. We give you a visual indicator that you have some to evaluate, but you would then say, oh yeah, these are all things that should be on my backlog. So I select them and I click add to backlog. That will bring them onto the backlog. This add to backlog button is what creates the story record, makes the association on that original task field. So you don't do anything, you just click that button and then it will show up in your backlog. You'll see I have defects now that are down here towards the bottom. And the defect, if I go into the story information, the story record itself has the original task filled in. So you don't modify it, it's read-only. You just need to know of its existence effectively. And then it shows up and can be, prioritized along with everything else.
Wow. That's great. Thank you.
No problem. Now we do have one last thing for the next question. We do have an open question that we're getting feedback from customers on do we turn the triage board, or I guess I should say add the option for anything on a particular triage definition to automatically get created instead of it needing to have a person's interaction. The reason we went with the manual approach is that, like, as a product owner, I don't want random things showing up on my backlog that I don't know about. So this makes it intentional, but we have had a couple of customers say they want it to be automatic. And while you can do that today without ServiceNow, it would be something that you would implement. We are evaluating whether or not we make it default, or not default, if we make it additional out of the box capability to automatically create and put something on your backlog.
Awesome.
Okay. So you said there was a question?
Yeah, there's 2 of them. First one's from Dawn. We're transitioning piloting SAFe. Somehow the stories in SAFe are being pulled into the visual task board from Agile. Is that by design?
No, it should not be doing that.
And my second half was, just so you know, we're using the RM_story table. So we've got 2 different, so we as the ServiceNow development team are working in the Agile module, but at Wellstar we are beginning to do SAFe. And what we have found, we're using the RM_story, but it's now pulling in the SAFe stories too.
So it shouldn't be. By default, it should only be pulling in RM story and not doing SAFe story. Unless you make a change or if there's a defect. So I would recommend opening a case. But the default behavior is that only RM story records are on the Agile 2.0 board and only SAFe stories are on the SAFe board. There are ways to circumvent that, but it is not the default and is also not something that should accidentally happen.
Right, and we haven't modified either modules. I mean, they're both literally out of the box. So, okay, we will put in a defect.
Yep.
Other questions? Oh, here's one. Oh, that's from Tom, just giving a clarification or additional information on that. Any other questions from the customers on the line? And actually, Colin, this would be a good chance if there was any points of clarification that you had. Not sure.
I haven't seen.
Terry,
I'll bring up the chat so I can read it as well.
So from Tom, both types of records are stories in RM_story. There's a type field you can use to determine which. Terry responded, what version is that on Dawn and Diane? And Diane and I were talking about Orlando. So that would be an Orlando item.
Okay, yeah, I
is that
brought
something
up the chat
to be considered?
so I can see it. No, again, if you're in, like, you'll notice I'm in Agile 2.0 now. I don't see safe story. Safe story extends RM story, but because safe has a very explicit, very prescriptive, I should say, process and a very prescriptive way of working, we wanted to basically not confuse the system by making everybody follow the way safe does it. So there are two different tables, but safe story does extend RM story, which is why if there's some configuration in play that has removed that we are basically filtering out things that are not a regular story, then that would be the cause. But again, it should not happen by default.
Gotcha. And then Tom, I don't know if you wanted to say anything. I see you were on mute. Did you want to add any additional points, or were you good?
No, that's all. It really just depends on how you're pulling. You know, if you're pulling through one of the, like the Agile board or the safe boards, you shouldn't have this problem. But if you're doing something behind the scenes, just be aware of that type field.
Yeah, actually, that is a good point. If you, instead of using the Agile board, if you just go in and say, you know, you go to just stories under Agile development, or you do something else and you create a visual task board, you would need to know to filter out, because the VTB by itself. So like if I wanted to, I don't know, do a VTB on assignment group. Then technically, if the assignment group had both types, then they'd show up, because you would need to add a filter. You would need, so you'll see that it has this task type equals story. If you either had it as one of or something, I think technically this would also pull in safe story because of the way table hierarchies work. But if you do it yourself, you might see both. If you follow from the Agile board, then you should not. And that's where Tom was saying you would need to filter out maybe something like an and, that the task type is not safe story. That would filter it out. But again, that's if you do it yourself. If you make a visual task board yourself, using the Agile board capability, it should do that for you.
Okay, I think what you just said made a whole lot of sense. So I think we'll probably just recreate the visual task board from the Agile, because I think when I created it from the table.
Yeah, then I would just say go in and add this filter. Task type is not safe story.
Safe story, yeah.
And that should filter it out.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you. It was kind of, we just noticed it today because they just started and we're all sitting there going, what happened? Kind of messed up our whole daily Scrum.
Yeah.
Like happy Monday, and then thank goodness for the office hour, right?
Really, it came at a very opportune time.
There we go. I love it. Awesome to hear. Great. Any other questions? This has been good so far. And, you know, I actually have a question out to the customers that are out there. How many of you are on track to be upgrading to Paris versus the version you're on, and how many are actually on Paris? I don't all speak at once.
We're on Paris.
Oh, there we go. Chris, we'll be there shortly. Awesome. I love to hear that. Diane skipping Paris, going to Quebec in Jan. Okay. Early action Quebec. Okay, that's even better. Terry currently on Orlando, won't be on Paris until mid 2021. Ooh, interesting. Adam, not till Q1 2021. So it looks like January is going to be the Paris month. January through February, or January through March there. Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff. Fred, there you go. Always a pleasure to hear that. On Paris now, and they're enjoying it. So there's a lot of good functionality. Definitely take advantage of there. Definitely, I just want to kind of give a additional plug that for the Jumpstart Your Upgrade program, that's definitely something that can help and assist you guys out if you need that additional assistance. Definitely just reach out to your success advocates for that. Any other questions? We actually have about 11 minutes left here. So any other questions for Colin around Agile? I think I see that you're unmuted. Did you have a question for Colin? Nope, there was a little talk.
No. I guess. Sorry. I was going to ask, can we limit in the connection back to Jira, can we limit which boards we integrate with, or is it just everything it'll pull in? For example, we have different groups to use different boards. So could we just, like, if we only want to migrate one group to use this?
So this would be different boards within the same project. Is that correct?
Or I should say different projects. How is that? Different projects.
So if it's different projects, then you have to explicitly onboard a project before we'll start synchronizing things. So that way, that's an easy answer, which is yes, you most definitely can. If it's multiple teams within the same project, I would have to check. I'm not sure if we can filter, if we currently filter out. So that again, that's if you're doing multiple teams within the same project. That one I'm not sure about off the top of my head, unless Tom, if you know off the top of your head. Otherwise, we can ask Balaji tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't. Sorry, not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Great. All right. Any other questions or comments? I'll give one more minute for that, 1 or 2 more minutes. And Colin, just out of curiosity too, well, actually, no, I think you've already answered that question. I was just about to ask a key question there, but just for the rest of the folks that are on the call, where would be some of the best practice information to kind of get anything and everything related to Agile that you guys have and host? Would it be community and success center, or where would you guys say is some of the best places to go?
Yeah, I would agree with that. The community and success center are good places. I'll also say, and it's funny, I used to do this back before I was at ServiceNow. Tom and I both were at Rally, and I would just go to the documentation if I wanted to see examples of reports, because faking reports is hard. And Tom reminded me of that, because if you want to see more in-depth like examples on the reports, we have them on the docs, just the ServiceNow docs site. So that's just a good resource if you want to see real world reporting examples, or I should say more like real world. The community also, I do highly recommend to just go and talk with others in this area, and we monitor it, and our success team helps out there as well. So that's a good option. Also, if there are things that you would like for us to do, you can certainly reach through your account team, but I'd recommend logging ideas through, even if you tell your account manager also, which I recommend, but logging ideas through the community site is really helpful for our product team to prioritize the things we're working on. Because if we are able to see lots of interactions around an idea, again, we use that to prioritize our backlog. So I would highly recommend doing that if you've got areas that you think we could improve on or capabilities that you think would be helpful for you through your Agile journey.
I will definitely have to echo exactly what Colin stated. There are many of you who reach out to us success advocates. We definitely love hearing about the enhancements, everything like that. We do have a great portal that's out there on the community so that you guys can get your ideas out there and have you as customers vote on those so that the folks in product can kind of see what's going to be something that comes in the next release, what makes the best, I guess, response to those type of requests that are out there. And then in addition, get a chance to see some of those come out with some of the future releases. It actually gets into the schedule faster that way because there's true voice behind the customer on those items. So thank you, Colin, for bringing that up. All right, any other questions? Diane, I think you had one more.
I do, sorry. Just a quick question about the Safe Agile licensing. Is there going to be a different licensing in Paris or Quebec for people who maybe need to see the art board, but really aren't going to do any work?
So this would be like, they need to see it, but they're not going to make updates to it?
Correct.
So definitely not in Paris. Quebec is still being worked on, but I don't think there will be changes there. However, something that we are looking into. So after this, let me see, I don't think I have a nice safe harbor slide already. Technically I have to flash it anytime where PowerPoint's really just not going to. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so pretend I have a safe harbor slide up here to talk about futures. So we are looking into the business, what's it called, business stakeholder role. That is a type of license that spans lots of products within ServiceNow. We're evaluating adding some of the safe capabilities into business stakeholder. It's not a part of Paris. And I'll have to check with the person working on our pricing and packaging if it was added in Quebec. I don't believe it is, but it's something we are looking into doing so that if you are someone who's only needing to view things, the business stakeholder role would be a better offering for them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, right now I'm telling them, nah, you can't see it. Sorry. I'll look over somebody else's shoulder.
Right.
They don't really like that idea, just so you know.
No, and I expect for that read-only business stakeholder role to most likely have it long term, but I would expect it more like the Rome timeframe, not before then. Okay. It might come with Quebec, but it's definitely not in Paris.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good. Any final questions? I don't see any additional in the chat. Going once. The countdown begins, Colin. Going twice. Going 3 times. All right. Well, I appreciate you very, very much, Colin. This was a great office hour talking about Agile and a wonderful overview of Paris. For those, again, who are on the call, if you have any questions that come up afterwards, feel free to reach out and let us know. We'll try to get those addressed. Thank you all for attending. For those listening to this recording, definitely take a look at those community links and other areas and the product documentation, and submit any ideas that you may have via ideation on the idea portal on the community site. So thanks again, Colin, to the team, and everyone take care. We will provide slides, PDF versions of these after this call, plus a recording. And as always, I'll submit a survey for you guys to be able to fill out and let us know how we can make some changes to the office hours, or if everything's looking good, let us know we're looking good. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Monday. Take care.
Thank you.
You.